Every year, in Vox Media's year-end recap, there's always a sizzle reel on climate change, and it features wildfires, hurricane, flooding, blackouts, extreme heat. And increasingly, these are scenes that we can recognize from our daily lives. Last summer, I was home in Shanghai, and the temperature was consistently above 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, growing up, that is something I would read on the front page of every single local newspaper. But today, nobody is going to waste time reporting on anything that's below 105 degrees. Over the past 4 years before coming to the GSB, I worked on helping fund low carbon solutions to stop climate change. Our goal was simple. It's net zero. No more carbon dioxide emitted into the atmosphere from human activities. I'm sure we've all heard this term. But what happens after net zero? Imagine I have a magic button. If you press it, we reach net zero tomorrow. Global warming doesn't suddenly just reverse. The Earth won't just cool down to what it was 150 years ago. And the extreme weather events we witness will not just stop happening. In large part, what's changed about our climate has already changed. And if the key word for climate change is net zero, what then is the key word for the changed climate? I say it's adaptation. Beyond working to stop climate change from getting worse, we also need to rethink our built environment and come up with new solutions that can help us reduce our exposure and vulnerability to the existing effects of climate change. Right now, without that, we're stuck in endless cycles of loss and rebuilding. In the US, if you look at the National Flood Insurance Program, they detail a category of property called repetitive loss properties, houses that have flooded multiple times. There are about 150,000 of them across the country. There's one house in particular that was very striking. It's this house in Mississippi. It has flooded 34 times in 32 years. Think about it, that is over once per year for over 3 decades on end. I call it Phil's house because this house seems like it walked straight off the set of the movie Groundhog Day. Something about the Phil's house, whether that is material or location or the building code, simply has not changed enough or in the right direction to break the time loop. And it's the same story over in California. Over the past 3 decades, California built over 1.5 million homes on what's called the wildland-urban interface. Wildland really is just unmaintained nature lands, and it's prime fuel for wildfire. So wildland-urban interface is just another way to say fire belt. Several of the worst hit regions in the recent LA fire fit this pattern of growth. People are getting pushed out to live in these regions because the housing prices in Center City is so high. Today, 1 out of 3 houses in California are in these areas. And what happens when natural disasters strike? These homes may become uninsurable, and people will want to migrate back into Center City. What ensues then is simple supply and demand. The prices will just keep going up again, bringing us right back to what got us here in the first place. And it's not just homes that are subject to these cycles, it's also our city's infrastructure. In 2021, I was in New York City and I saw Hurricane Ida dumping 3.5 inches of rain on the city per hour. It was completely overwhelming. That's why you see subway stations turning to subterranean waterfalls. 11 people got drowned in their basement apartments. This is after New York City already spent $2.5 billion upgrading flood protection. New York is also not alone in this. 1 out of 9 residents in the continental United States live in an area where the infrastructure cannot handle the amount of rainfall. We need to give the city some credit because they are investing upgrading infrastructure. The problem is They are sometimes using rainfall records that are decades old. Weather patterns have changed, and inland flash floods are now a lot more prevalent. These things are inherently difficult to predict. Now imagine doing that with outdated data. That's near impossible. So far, we've mainly relied on the public sector to solve these problems. But that's not enough. The United Nations Environmental Program estimates there to be a $200 to $350 billion gap in adaptation finance. For every $1 the public sector invests into decarbonization, the private sector puts in about $1.20, and that's great. But if you look at that same comparison on adaptation, for every dollar of public sector investment, the private sector puts in 3 cents. The problem is this. Adaptation is sometimes seen as this defeatist agenda. We're all racing to reach net zero, and that is ambitious. And if you truly believe we can do that, we're going to cure the disease, then why are you going to waste time treating the symptoms? The problem is, adaptation will continue to be a long-term need even beyond us reaching net zero. More importantly, it means change for the 148 million people who are already suffering from the adverse effects of climate change today. Climate change is the farthest from a defeatist agenda because it means us not giving up on those 148 million people. That could be you and me one day. So I want to challenge everyone to do one thing, to invest in climate adaptation. Investors in the room, help funnel capital to adaptation technologies. Come up with an adaptation thesis. Currently, we have materials that will help with fire protection, heat reduction, flood prevention, but those materials are priced at a premium to their regular counterparts. Help invest and bring the cost down so that adopting them become a no-brainer. Come up with theses in all different sectors. We also need solutions in healthcare, helping prevent heat and waterborne diseases. We need solutions in agriculture, coming up with new weather-resilient crops. And innovators work with the investors, but also help come up with new hardware and software solutions to collect more data. We need more data, more localized data and timely data so that cities can finally start building forward-looking infrastructures. Stop chasing after a moving target and ending up one step behind. So global operators, invest in the local community you're operating in. Their success adapting to climate change is your success. And to the policymakers, work on zoning reform, updating building codes so that fewer people have to be pushed out to live in high-risk areas in the first place. And to you and I, just as consumers, as we graduate and move out of Palo Alto, recognize the climate risk of wherever you end up at. Invest in hardening your homes accordingly. Better yet, engage with the local government and push for adoption of green and resilient infrastructure. One day, perhaps decades out in the future, if we succeed in decarbonization, we will hopefully see a more positive sizzle reel on climate, one that might feature reforestation, glacier stabilizing, nature rewilding, and we would all want to see that. In the meantime, though, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But if we work on climate adaptation, the next time a sizzle reel comes up of wildfires, hurricanes, and flooding, hopefully there's not as much human losses associated with it. Because nobody should have to live in Phil's house. Thank you.